This was completely unexpected. But of course, as you know, if you followed this channel for a while, I honestly, there are times when I go in focused and thinking I'm going to make this happen. And then there are other times that it happens and I'm truly not expecting it to happen. And well, tonight, August 22nd, 2020, looking at the time right now, it is 11:55 p.m. So it's quite late on a Saturday. I had decided to lay down. I wasn't feeling great again later on in the evening. I don't know. I just had a weird kind of feeling. The last day or so has been kind of strange for me. I don't know how you guys have felt the last couple of days, but I felt a little strange. And so anyway, it was Saturday finally. I was off and I was able to relax. And so I had taken a nap earlier this afternoon and I just went to sleep. Nothing really happened. Had my storm sounds on and yeah, nothing. And then tonight I lay down again with my storm sounds and I was just lying there and nothing was happening at first. And so I just thought, I'm just going to, I don't know, put on some kind of talking in the background and listen, something entertaining or whatever. I'm just going to lay here. Again, I had, I guess, in my mind given up. And one of the things that I always tell you, and I will continue to tell you, is that the moment that you let go of what you're trying to do is the moment that it will actually happen. Again, I know that it is counterintuitive. I know that it doesn't make sense to let go of what you're doing or thinking about that, my gosh, I need to focus on this. I need to get to it. To let go of it, to stop thinking about that makes absolutely no sense. But none of this does. This isn't about logic. It really isn't. There are things going on that I simply do not understand, but they go far beyond logic. So one of the secrets, of course, again, and one of the tips I'm throwing in here is I'm conveying my experience to you as I always love to do. I love to share my experiences, but I also love to try and assist you in some way and saying, hey, look, this is what I did. Maybe it will work for you. I don't know. Maybe it will. But anyway, I let go. I mean, I was listening to some talks, nothing relaxing really. I was just trying to entertain myself, and eventually I started to kind of fall away, and then that in-between state struck. And I felt it. And it's so interesting because I could hear the talk in the background and I already knew that it was a mistake. I'm like, oh gosh, this experience is not going to last very long because this talking is going on and it's going to distract me from whatever experience this is. I know, but if I come out of it now, I thought in my mind, then that's it. I don't know if I'll be able to go back into it tonight. So I decided to just go with it. So again, as you know, with the Beyond Body, there are feelings of motion. There are feelings of being turned in different angles and different ways. This began with the feeling that I was turned 180 degrees in my bed. So I was lying down and then I felt as if I was on maybe perhaps a spinning top and I turned or spun 180 degrees. It was a slow motion. And then I felt myself move down to the floor. And that is usually the feeling. And it's so interesting. I could actually, I began to push forward and it wasn't that exhilarating push like, you're on a roller coaster, you're on a fighter jet and you're, pulling forward. This was more of a gradual motion. I just started to move forward. And as I moved, it was funny. I could hear sounds in the backdrop other than the talking that was going on from my phone or my iPad or whatever. There were other sounds. It was almost as if I could feel myself moving along my carpet. It was a really strange thing. I don't know how to explain it to you. I just remember that there were sounds, and I remember that I was moving for longer than I would have thought I was going to move. It's funny. I thought in my mind, this trip isn't going to be very long. I thought, I'm not going to go all that far. But it seemed like I traveled a bit. It seemed like as I was moving forward in the darkness, it felt like it took some time for me to go where I needed to go. Who knows? I don't know. And as I traveled again, I wanted to share with you some of the things I was thinking. I thought love and light. I mean, that's one of my go to things to do in my mind when I'm traveling at times is to just think of love and light. And, you never know. I never know where I'm going to end up. I never know when the darkness lifts where exactly I'm going to be. I started to slow down. And the darkness began to lift as it always does, to reveal a white wall. I see this quite a bit. Freshly painted white walls. I don't know why that is. Who knows? Maybe it's a coincidence. But it's one of the things I always remember seeing first. Painted white walls, a freshly painted white wall. That's the first thing I saw. And then I started to look around. I was in an art gallery of some kind. That's the first thing I remember. I was standing near a wall. There was a large window, and outside of that window, I could see traffic. I could see cars going back and forth. Then I looked, and the first thing I saw in this gallery were portraits or large artistic photos. Perhaps I shouldn't say a portrait. It was a portrait, but it was a photograph or a big picture. It was framed. There were a couple of pictures, but I remember in the first portrait that I looked at that I was looking at someone who looked a lot like Little Richard. Now, I'm not even old enough to remember Little Richard in his heyday when he was a singer. I don't have that in my memory. By the time I came along, he had gotten older and he hadn't really been on the, out there and performing. I'm sure he was, but he wasn't as big or famous as he was years and years and years before that, back in his heyday. Now, one of the things I remember about this photo that I saw, or these series of photos or portraits, was that the person or the man that appeared to me to be Little Richard. By the way, I want to emphasize to you that just because it appeared to be Little Richard doesn't mean that it was Little Richard. I'm not sure. It's someone that, to me, in my mind, I thought, that looks a lot like Little Richard. And on the portrait, on a shirt that he was wearing, was the number 8. And the number 8 was painted in a sort of black watercolor. Black watercolor. It was the number 8. Now that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, I mean, you could interpret that as being the sign of infinity. I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe that was the sign of infinity. But yeah, I thinking about it, it could have been. I just remember it being the number 8, and I remember thinking to myself, I will remember the number 8. I will remember that number. It is significant. So I'm looking at the number 8. I'm looking at this portrait of who appears to me to be Little Richard, and there was a small crown on his head. Like a small, I interpreted it to be a small crown. It was golden and it was really tiny. I could barely see it. It was really tiny, but you could see that there was like a crown in the portrait. And there was also, I think, pictures of him perhaps as a baby, as a small child. I'm not 100% sure, but I do remember the number 8. I remember the fact that it was painted in the number 8 was sort of a black watercolor kind of paint that it was in number 8. And I remember in the portrait that he looked quite young, very, very young. So I then took another look at the traffic outside. I wanted to get a sense of maybe what time period I was in, if I had perhaps gone back through time. I mean, that was one thought that went into my head. Maybe I'm in another time. Another thing I thought was, this is so cool, during this time when everybody's pretty much stuck and there's a lot of people not able to do a lot of things. I'm sitting here in this portrait in a place where, none of the issues appear to exist that exist in our time, in our world right now. So it was kind of cool. And I really that thought did cross my mind. I thought, wow, this is really cool. And the traffic, the cars, I would say, if I were guessing, 50s, maybe 60s, 1950s, maybe 1960s style car, somewhere in there. I'm just trying to be safe in the time period because it was somewhere there. I was definitely not seeing modern day 2020, 2019, 2018. No, it wasn't like that at all. These cars, these vehicles were older vehicles. I just couldn't tell you and pinpoint the exact time, but I'm thinking 1950s, 1960s. I thought in my mind, maybe I should try and get outside because that could be interesting to see what's going on outside. And then I turned my attention to a man that was walking further down the gallery. Now, there seemed to be other portraits, other pictures further down, and this man had a hairstyle that you would think from the 1950s. Sort of, I don't know really how to describe it to you, to be completely honest. It's the way young men that were into rock and roll wore their hair back then. I'm not sure about that. I really can't tell you and really can't describe it to you, to be completely honest. But he was walking down towards, I think, a woman, and I didn't see really what the woman looked like. And I was only able to see the back of the man's hair. But when I saw him, that's what I thought, 1950s, maybe 55 or so. And as he was stopping to speak to this lady, he was speaking to her for something. I don't know what it was. Maybe they were just chatting, having a conversation. I have no idea. I was going to start to approach them. Just as I began to approach, I quickly lost my grip on this reality and I was back. So I don't have much for you guys on this experience. I didn't bring back much, but as always, it was interesting. Anyway, that was it. I opened my eyes, I came here, and now I am sharing this with you. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.